Today we're going to be looking at some ACT strategy questions here. We've already talked about some strategies such as substitution, back solving, graphing, drawing pictures, filling in charts and diagrams, and also, I don't think we mentioned this before, but also making sure things line up, and if they line up in an equation, they're equal to each other. We're going to kind of show that with the second problem you'll see here. But let's start with number 1 here. It says if x is greater than 1, then which of the following has the least value? Alright, so again, here's our restriction. X has to be greater than 1. So in this case, let's substitute in a value that is greater than 1. So let's say x is 2 in this case. Alright, now that we have x is 2, we're just going to substitute that into our answer choices to see which one has the least value. So f here would be rad 2, which is approximately 1.41. And then over here we're going to have 2 times 2 is 4, square root of 4, which would equal 2. Again, this would be 2 times 2 is 4, so we get the square root of 4 also is equal to 2. This one would be 2 radical 2, which is just twice choice f there, so roughly 2.82. And then k here, 2 times 2 would be 4. So as we can see, choice F would have the least value. So very simple to do simply by substitution. Alright, let's look at 2 here. So it says Charles defines a new operation, diamond, on the pair of ordered pairs of integers as follows. A comma B, diamond C comma D equals AC plus BD over AB minus CD. Okay, what is the value of 2 comma 1 diamond 3 comma 4? Well, as you can see here, right, if I were to line this up with the A comma B diamond C comma D, all this says is that A matches up with 2, B matches up with 1, C is 3, and D is 4. So all we need to do is simply substitute those back in to our definition here to get our answer. So in this case, we get 2 times 3 plus 1 times 4. All of that over A times B, 2 times 1 minus C times D. Alright, so we get 6 plus 4 on top over 2 minus 12 on the bottom, which would be 10 over negative 10, which is simply negative 1, which would be choice B. Alright, looking at question 3 here, we have when y equals x squared, which of the following expressions is equivalent to negative y? Alright, so again, if you weren't sure where to begin with this one, we could just start by simply substituting something in. So let's choose a value for x here. Let's say x was 2 again. I like to keep it nice and simple. Well, if x is 2, then 2 squared would be 4. So y would be 4. Okay, so when x is 2, y is 4. So we want to know then what's equal to negative y. Well, negative y then would be negative 4. So this is the answer that we're looking for. So we go back to our answer choices, and let's see which one works here. Well, negative 2 squared, make sure you keep that in parentheses, would be a positive 4. Negative 2 squared would be a negative 4. Negative x would be negative 2. X to the negative 2 is the same thing as 1 over x squared, so that would actually be 1 over 2 squared, or 1/4. And then x is just 2. So the only answer here that works is choice G. Alright, question 4 here says the sides of a square are 3 centimeters long. One vertex of the square is at 3, 0 on a square coordinate grid marked in centimeter units. Which of the following points could also be a vertex of the square? Alright, so this is a question where we want to kind of draw out a picture to help us out. So since we're talking about the grid, I'm going to go ahead and create a grid here, and we're going to graph that point 3, 0 on my grid here. Now if it's a square tells me that we have equal side lengths. So I can go 3 in any direction. So I could go up 3 and put a point here. I could go to the right 3, put a point here. I could go to the left 3, 1, 2, 3, put a point here. I could go down 3, which would give me a point here. And then obviously we could fill in the corners because we could go 3 left and 3 up. Put a point there. We could go 3 right, 3 up. You could go down 3, 3 right, down 3, 3 left. So these are all the possible points here. So one of those that could also be the vertex of the square would be this point right here, which is the point 6, 0 from choice A. We could have either that square right there, or we could have this square right here. All the sides are 3 in either case there. Alright, number 5 here says if 2x squared plus 6x equals 36, what is a possible value of x? Now, if you know how to factor, you can go ahead and do this. It's actually going to be a lot easier to do that way. But let's say you didn't remember that or couldn't figure that out. Another thing you could do is what we call a back-solving method, which is using your answer choices to help you answer the question. Now, when I do this method, I always start with choice C or H on the ACT, whichever one is in the middle here. So I'm just going to go ahead and start with this. So what's the possible value for x? Let's try out these here. And let's say x is -3. Well, now I'm going to substitute that into my original problem here. 2x squared plus 6x equals 36. We're going to see if this works. So we get 2 times -3 squared plus 6 times -3. And here we get -3 squared is 9. 9 times 2 is 18. 18 minus 18 is not equal to 36. So it can't be -3, which means anything else that has a -3 in it would automatically be ruled out. Okay, so let's go ahead and try a different one here. Why don't we go ahead and I'm going to look for something that's in both of them to make it a little bit easier. Well, this one both has 3s, so why don't we try out 3 in this case. So 3 squared is going to be 9. 9 times 2 is 18 plus 18. Well, that is 36. That does work. Okay. So we know it has to have a 3, which eliminates choice K here. So then we just have to check to see if it's -6 or if it's -12. Well, let's see. -6, -6. -6 squared would be 36. 36 times 2 is 72. 6 times -6 would be -36, which would also equal 36, which means it has to be choice G here, as both of -6 and 3 work. Alright, number 6 here says, as a class experiment, a cart was rolled at a constant rate along a straight line. Sean recorded in the chart below the cart's distance x in feet from reference point at the start of the experiment and for each of the 5 times t in seconds. Which of the following equations represents this data? Alright, now you can go ahead, you can use the slope and write an equation in y equals mx plus b form. That's fine. If you know how to do that, go ahead. However, there's a very simple way to do this. If you are given values here in a table, a lot of the time all you need to do is pick a point. So in this case, I'm going to pick something in the middle. You don't want to pick from the beginning because usually that will work for more than one answer. So I jump somewhere in the middle. So we're going to use the point t is 3 and x is 22. And I'm just going to take that point and use my answer choices here to see which one of those will work. So as you can see, the first one here, 3 plus 10 is not 22, so that's out. 4 times 3 plus 6, well, that would give us 12 plus 6, which is going to be 18. That doesn't work. This one, 4 times 3 plus 10, that would be 12 plus 10, which you can see is 22. I'm just going to check the other ones just to make sure that there's no other answer that works here. This one, 10 times 3 plus 4, well, that's way too much. That's going to be 34. And 14 times 3, again, is going to be way more than 22. So in this case, C is the correct answer. Alright, 7. To increase the mean of 4 numbers by 2, how much would the sum of the 4 numbers have to increase? Now, this is an interesting problem here, where I'm actually going to use the substitution method, and I'm going to make up my own values here to test it out. So I'm just going to pick the numbers, let's say 2, 4, 6, and 8. Okay. So we are talking about the mean of the 4 numbers. Now the mean is the average, so I'm just going to go ahead and take the average of those 4 numbers by adding them all up and then dividing by 4. In this case, if I add them all up, I get 20. And then if I divide it by 4, we get that the average here is 5. Now what I want to do is I want the mean to increase by 2. So I want the mean to change from 5 to 7. Okay. Now the question says, how much would the sum of those numbers have to increase by? Well, we're still dividing by 4 here. Well, the sum was 20. So if I take 20, what do I have to increase that by in order to end up with 7? Well, let's try out the answer choices. If I did 20 plus 6 divided by 4, well, that can't be divided by 4. If I did 20 plus, let's say, 8 in this case, 20 plus 8, that'd be 28, and 28 divided by 4 is 7. So in this case, the answer would have to be J. So by simply creating some numbers to test out for yourself, it makes this problem a little bit easier to approach. With that same idea in mind, we're going to do the same thing with number 8 here. It says, in the figure below, ABCD is a square. Points are chosen on each pair of adjacent sides of ABCD to form 4 congruent right triangles as shown below. Each of these has one leg that is twice as long as the other leg. So we want to know what fraction of the area of square ABCD is shaded. Alright, now at first this might seem a little bit complicated, so let's make this a little bit easier. Let's choose a value for x, and again, I'm just going to make this really simple here. Well, yeah, let's just do 2. Okay, so let's say x is 2. If this is 2, then this is 4. Now they said that these were all congruent triangles, so then this has to be 2 and 4, that has to be 2 and 4, this would have to be 2 and 4. Okay. So, as you can see, each side is 6 of square ABCD here. ABCD. Which means the total area of this is 36. In my example, if you choose a different number, obviously you'll have a different area, but it will still work out here. Now what we want to do is we want to figure out, well, what fraction is shaded here? There's 2 different approaches you can use. One is you could actually use the Pythagorean Theorem here and do 2 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared and figure out the length of this side and then compute the area of that square there. Or you could just simply take what the areas would be of each one of these triangles. Well, remember, the area of a triangle is half the base times the height. So in this case, the area of the triangle would be half of 4 times 2. So half of 8 would be 4. So this has an area of 4, this has an area of 4, this has an area of 4, and that has an area of 4. So it's 4, 8, 12, that's 16, which means left over for this rectangle, or I'm sorry, square in the middle here, we'd just simply take away from 36, and we get that this is 20, because now that fills up the entire square to be 36. So in this case, we want to know what fraction of the area is shaded. Well, we just figured out the shaded area is 20 out of the total area, which is 36, and now we can just simplify this by reducing. So if reduced by 4 here, divide by 4, that would be 5, divide by 4, that would be 9. So that means 5/9 is shaded, which would be choice D. Okay, number 9 here. If r and s can be any integers such that s is greater than 10 and 2 times r plus s is 15, which of the following is the solution set for r? Okay, again, here we have a restriction. It says that s has to be greater than 10. So let's do it. Let's choose s is 11. You're substituting your own value here. So we have 2r plus s equals 15. So if I let s be 11, in this case, now we go ahead and solve this out. Minus off the 11. 2r equals 4, and then r is 2 in this case. Okay. So let's take a look then and see if we can eliminate any answer choices. Okay. R is 2. So is 2 greater than 3? No, that one's out. Is 2 greater than 0? Sure. Is 2 greater than or equal to 2? Yep. Is 2 less than or equal to 0? No. And is 2 less than or equal to 2? Well, yes, it is in that case. Okay. So now we're down to 3 options here. And this is going to happen from time to time. What you're going to have to do in that case is test out another number. Now what I recommend is if you do this and this happens, I would test out the number that they gave you here, knowing that it's not in your solution. So if I let s actually be 10 in this case, and I said 2r plus 10 equals 15, and I go ahead and solve this, well, I minus off the 10, minus off the 10, 2r equals 5, r equals 5 over 2, so r equals 2.5. Now remember, this is not in the solution, so it can't actually equal 2.5. But when s was 10, we got 2.5. When s, 11. No, 10. 2.5. Then when s was 11, we got r was 2 in this case. Okay, so as you can see, our r values are going down. They're all going to be less than or equal to 2 in this case, because they have to be integers, and 10 is an integer, 11 is an integer, so the highest r value we're going to get is 2, which means it has to be e. If you want, you could keep testing this out. Like if I put in s's, let's go up to 13 here or something, and I go back, let's just change this to a 13. I'll erase this over here. Okay, so we say 13 in this case, and I minus off 13. Then we get 2r is 2, which means that r is 1 in this case. So as you can see, it does continue to decrease the value of r. Alright, let's move on then to question number 10 here. So it says, which of the following expressions has a positive value for all x and y, such that x is greater than 0 and y is less than 0? Okay, again, we have two restrictions here that we could substitute in. So x is greater than 0, y is less than 0. So let's choose, why don't we say x is 2 and y is like negative 2. I always just avoid 1 and negative 1 because sometimes they have some weird properties that could throw off your answer. Other times they'll make the question really easy, but let's test out 2 and negative 2 in this case. So which of the following has a positive value for x? Alright, well now let's test out these answer choices here. So f would be negative 2 minus 2, which would be negative 4. Well, that's clearly not positive. 2 plus negative 2, that would be 0, not positive. X to the third would be 2 to the third times negative 2. Well, positive times a negative is going to be a negative. And in this case, that would be negative 16, which is not the answer. 2 squared would be 4 over negative 2, which would be negative 2, not positive, which means our answer has to be k here. 2 over negative 2 squared would be 2 over 4, which is equivalent to a positive 1/2. Alright, question 11 here. For real numbers, a and b, when is the equation a plus b in the absolute value equal to a minus b in the absolute value true? Alright, well, let's see if we can substitute in some values that would make this true. So choice A says it's always true. Let's test it out. Will any numbers for a and b be true? Let's say a is 2, b is 3. If I take the absolute value of 2 plus 3, does that equal the absolute value of 2 minus 3? Well, 2 plus 3 would be 5. 2 minus 3 would be negative 1. Absolute value changes everything to be positive, so 5 equals 1. So clearly it's not true always. When a equals b, okay, well, let's test out when a equals b. Let's say they're both 2. So let's see how that affects this. So if that's 2 and that's 2, well, now we get 0 over here, 4 over here, so 4 equals 0. It's not true when they're equal. Okay, only when a and b are 0. Let's try it when a and b are 0. So in this case here, a and b are 0. 0 plus 0, 0 minus 0. Absolute value of 0, absolute value of 0, 0 equals 0. So this one does work. Now we have to pay attention to the keywords here as it says only. And let's check out D, only when a is 0 or b is 0. So let's let just one of them be 0. Let's say a is 0 and b is 2. Okay, and let's see if that works. Well, this would be 0 plus 2 is 2. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. But when you take the absolute value, you get 2 and you get 2. So it does work when a is 0 or b is 0. which means that it can't be choice C and has to be choice D, because only one of them has to be 0, not both of them. Alright, question 12 here. For some real number a, the graph of the line y equals a plus 1 times x plus 8 in the standard xy coordinate plane passes through the point 2, 6. What is the slope of this line? Okay, again, if they give you a point, an x comma y value here, and an equation, what you're going to want to do is substitute in that point into your equation. So let's go ahead and do this. Y in this case is 6, and x is 2. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and solve this for a. So what I'm going to start by doing is I'm going to minus off 8 here. So we get negative 2 equals a plus 1 times 2. I'm going to divide by 2. If you want, you could distribute that through. It will get the same result. This way it's just a little bit faster. So here we get negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1 equals a plus 1. And then I'm just simply going to subtract 1 from both sides and get that a is negative 2. Alright, now we have our a value here, and a lot of you will be looking over your answer choice and say, oh wait, but that's not an answer choice. And you're right. It's not an answer choice because it's not what we're looking for. Remember, this question's asking you, what is the slope of this line? And the slope, when you have the equation y equals mx plus b, is everything before the x there. It's the m value. So what we have to do is substitute back in our a is negative 2 back into this equation up here. So when we have y equals a plus 1 times x plus 8, we really have a was negative 2 plus 1x plus 8, and negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1x plus 8, meaning our slope here is negative 1. So everything right before the x. Choice C. Okay, number 13 here. When graphed in the standard xy coordinate plane, the lines x equal negative 3 and y equals x minus 3 intersect at what point? Okay. Well, here's a good hint. They tell you what the x value is already. X is negative 3, which eliminates choice A and B right off the bat. Okay, and since they told you x is negative 3, all you have to do is substitute in x is negative 3 into the equation. X minus 3 in this case, we get y equals negative 3 minus 3. So then y is negative 6. So x is negative 3, y is negative 6, means that this has to be choice E. Now another thing you could do in this case, if you want, you do have a calculator on this test. Just make sure it is an acceptable calculator. There's a whole list of them, the ones that are accepted on the ACT, make sure you're using one of those. But you can graph this, and you can actually see where the point of intersection would be. I'll just draw you a rough sketch over here. But x is negative 3, basically is this line over here. X is negative 3. And then if we were to graph y equals x minus 3, 1, 2, 3, well, we'd start at negative 3, and then we'd go down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, and you'll see that intersects at that point, negative 3, negative 6. Okay, number 14 here. For all real numbers b and c such that the product of c and 3 is b, which of the following expressions represents the sum of c and 3 in terms of b? Okay, most of you are going to look at this question and be like, what did I just read here? Well, let's break this down a little bit and try to see if we can simplify it. First off, whenever you see this phrase in terms of b or something on one of these questions, I almost want you to just disregard it. All it means is that every single answer choice here has a b in it. That's all that means. And a lot of people get thrown off by that wording. Alright, now let's go back to the beginning here. So it says, for all real numbers b and c, such that the product, okay, you're going to have to know some math terms here. Product means multiplication of c and 3 is b. So what we're saying is 3 times c equals b. That's it. So in this case, why don't we just go ahead and substitute in some numbers? Whenever you have an equation, it's a good thing to try out if you're stuck substituting in. So let's say C was 2 in this case. So 3 times 2 is B, then that means B has to be 6. Okay. So we're saying C is 2 and B is 6. Now let's answer the question. Which of the following expressions represents the sum of C and 3? Well, if we took the sum of C and 3, sum means addition, and we know C is 2, so 2 plus 3, then the sum of C and 3 is 5. There's the answer. Alright, so now what we need to do is find that answer on the left-hand side here. So let's run through our answer choices. B. Well, B is 6. 6 plus 3 is 9. That's clearly not 5. 3 times 6 is 18 plus 3. Not going to be 5. 6 plus 3 is going to be 9. 9 times 3, not 5. 6 plus 3 divided by 3, well, that would be 9 over 3, which is 3. Again, not 5. And lastly here, 6 divided by 3 plus 3, well, 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 2 plus 3 is 5. So our answer choice here is E. Alright, and then the last question here, number 15. In the figure below, angle BAC measures 30 degrees. Angle ABC measures 110, and points B, C, and D are collinear. What is the measure of angle ACD? Okay, when you come to a question like this, if you don't know what to do, I highly suggest that you just fill in as much information as possible, especially when they already give you a diagram here. So they said that BAC measures 30, so I'm going to put 30 in there. They said that ABC is 110, okay, and they want to know the measure of ACD. So they want this angle out here, which I'll call X. Alright, well, I noticed that I have this triangle ABC here, and when you have a triangle, the degrees in a triangle add up to 180. So if I said 110 plus 30 plus, let's say, I'll call this Y, Y is 180. Well, we get 140 plus Y is 180, which means that Y has to be 40 in this case. And if Y is 40 over here, well, that also tells me something about X, because they are supplementary. They form a straight line. They're a linear pair. So 40 plus X has to be 180 degrees here, which means that X has to be 140, choice G. Alright, so there's some strategies hopefully you can use on the ACT here. So if you get stuck, try them out, and hopefully it will work out. Alright, have a good one, everyone.